it's India, and I'm here to do the fifth video in a series I'm doing inspired by Art as Therapy by Alain de Botton and John Armstrong. This book proposes a new way of looking at art and a new way of understanding art's function in society, kind of placing this function of therapy onto it. Alain de Botton proposes 7 different ways of looking at the purpose of art through this new lens, and I'm creating questions and answering questions more related to books in conversation with this book. If you want to know more about what I'm doing, I'll link the intro up and below, and as well as the other videos I've done in the series. Today I'm going to be discussing books that help me understand who I am. Alain de Botton talks about art as a way that can help us understand who we are and explore different nuances of our personality, and I think books are pretty similar and can do the same. I first want to talk not about a specific book, but about an author, and that's Sharon Creech. Sharon Creech was my favorite author growing up. I read so many of her books. She wrote Walk Two Moons, and as well as Chasing Redbird and Absolutely Normal Chaos. These are middle grade books that are generally centered around young women who are kind of figuring out who they are, their relationships with their family, their relationships with their friends, as well as starting to develop crushes on individuals, on other people, and I found her books incredibly amazing to read as a child, and ones that I could always connect to the characters. Absolutely Normal Chaos is about a girl who's writing a book, and Chasing Redbird is about a girl who's struggling with the death of a family member. So these are books that really helped me understand things that I found similar in my own life. The next book that I want to talk about was one of my favorite books of not this past year, but the year before, and it's How to Be a Heroine, or What I've Learned from Reading Too Much by Samantha Ellis. This book is Samantha Ellis's way of looking at the heroines and the literary females that she's adored in her life, revisiting them and kind of analyzing how they impacted her growing up. I found this so interesting. This was a book that I read, and it contains elements of memoir but also literary analysis, and I read it thinking back on the books that I loved as a child and the characters that I loved as a child, and almost wanting to do the same thing. I think this was a book that I very much found myself in. I read it and I was like, wow, this would be amazing to do on my own. I want to talk about a book that I read in junior high or high school, and that's Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain. This is an incredibly important book to me. I'm an introvert. I like to spend my time alone. I like to be quiet. I'm not the most outgoing person. I'm not always the greatest in social situations, but this book helped me realize that those don't have to be bad qualities, and that that people who are introverts have a lot of strengths that may not be explicitly adored in our society, but are incredibly important. The last book is one that I read upon the request of a friend. I was in this writing camp about writing your application essays for applying to colleges, and one of the essays I wrote about was about having social anxiety, and about the social anxiety that I have about going off to college and going to a new place, and one of my friends was like, please read this book, and that book is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. This is about Kath, who's going away to college and is kind of terrified. This is a book that has a character who has social anxiety, and I'd never read about someone who had social anxiety before. Generally, the books that I read are about adventurous characters who go out and do things because that's what we want our characters to do. But I found that Kath was no less adventurous or no more boring to read about because of that, and I found that it was really interesting. thank you for watching this video. I hope that you've watched some other videos that I've made in this series, and I'd love to know what books have helped you understand who you are. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in another video.